boils and ghouls. Turn out the lights and keep the popcorn coming, because it's time for another episode of Fright Fights Podcast. Fright Fights Podcast. Get ready for your gore gang. Tyler Cavan, Chris Lax, and Mike McKinney tackling horror news, reviews, and fight for their survival. Coming to you from the Fright Fights Fear Lodge. Get ready to sink your fangs into a battle that will make your blood run cold. This is Fright Fights.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Fright Fights podcast. And today we have a very weird episode as Mike had a situation that he cannot be here tonight. So it is your hosts, Chris and Tyler, for the evening. And we have something special for you that we're going to be doing. And Tyler, if you want to let everybody know exactly how we're doing this tonight.
Yeah, so we are making a horror tier list. This tier list, if you guys are familiar with these for sure, but if you're watching over on YouTube, you probably see the screen here. We are going to actually be ranking horror franchises from the top to the bottom. So if we absolutely love this franchise, we are going to rank it with like an S, an A, and it goes all the way down to F. So we are sitting here looking at about 150 franchises, and what we're going to do is take turns back and forth, and each of us are going to be able to say which franchise we deserve certain ratings. And I think we can even do something where we could bump each other off. Like we'll do like 3 each. So Chris is going to get 3 bumps. I'm going to get 3 bumps. And if we disagree with each other, we have the option to bump up to 3 times to change the rating to what we think it should be. So what do you think, Chris?
I think it sounds absolutely fun to do. I can't wait to get started. I do apologize if I sound a little nasally or if you hear me sneezing or snotting around. I apologize. I am suffering a little bit of a cold this evening, so
we're all
just
dying,
bear
guys.
with me.
We literally are all dying here. All right. Well, how about we kick this entire thing off with a bang with a very well-known series. I'm sure some people love to hate, know to love. Friday the 13th.
Now, are we ranking these like the entire franchise or just the first film?
No, the entire franchise. So you're thinking...
Okay, that's what I thought.
So every single Friday the 13th film together. Here's the thing. If you just ask me like a certain Friday the 13th film, I'm going to say one thing, but the entire franchise, I'm going to say it's a flawed franchise. I love
it is.
But Jesus, I mean, there are some really, really rough ones as well, but they're fun. So are you going to rank this on the case of like, it's fun, but it's terrible, but also at the same time, some of them are really good?
I think the good outweighs the bad in the situation of the franchise. Because if we were going by literally like the first 8 films, it would have an entirely different ranking. But when you start putting the New Line versions in there, that's what starts really declining this franchise down. So, I mean, even though it's a flawed franchise, there's a lot of stuff in there to really, really love.
And we all remember 2009 all too well.
Unfortunately.
All right, so this belongs, I easily would say, B. I think that's fair.
I think you're absolutely right. And like I was saying, if we were going based off like the first 8, then I would put it up in A. Definitely not superior, because if you put S as in superior, which means it's every single thing about it is absolutely amazing, and we know that that's not truth. But A just means that there are a lot of really good stuff in it throughout the entire franchise with hardly any bad. But the New Line stuff just is so bad in certain areas that you cannot put it in that category any longer. So I think the New Line, Yeah, New Line really drags that franchise down. So I think B is a really good spot for Friday the 13th franchise.
100% agree. All right, Chris, you're up with this one.
So Silent Night, Deadly Night. Okay, well, this one is a really weird situation because the first movie is it's superior level. It's a great Christmas horror film, lots of gore, lots of sleaze. Then you come into number two, which in its own self, even though it's a not a very good made movie, it's got some hilarious moments in it that are memorable, especially the garbage day scene. Three and four, they are not very good films, not very memorable either. Clint Howard is in a couple of them. Bill Moseley is in a couple. He might just be in part three, I think. But they're not really Silent Night, Deadly Night films. They're just Christmas themed films that could just happen to take the Silent Night, Deadly Night name. And then the Toymaker Part Five kind of jumps back up a little bit more Christmassy, a little bit more fun. Then the remake comes along, got Silent Night, and I would put this probably just because the first two are so good. I would put this at C. I put this at a C level.
Okay. I I I'm not too far off. I'd probably go C or D as well. First movie is great, like you said. The other ones suck. And who's the dude that says garbage day? Oh my God, the guy's name. He's never done hardly. He's done a few more things. What's his name? Do you
Yeah,
know?
Eric Freeman.
Yes, yes, Eric. I remember his first ever convention appearance was at Horror Hound, and people were like talking about how like excited they were to finally get like the signature. Because it's a garbage day. It's like such like a meme at this point. It's so funny. And he brought trash cans to sign like actual like mini aluminum trash cans. And I think that's
Nice.
probably the best marketing. Imagine just having that signature next to like all the films there in your collection.
Yeah, and it's considered one of the most like it's considered one of the worst movies I've ever made, or at least the scene itself, that garbage day scene, is considered
Oh,
like all time bad movies.
it's scary.
So it's still fun though. Just because it's bad doesn't mean it's not a fun film. But yeah, with the dragging of three and four, and then the remake, I think it belongs in C and even D to push the limit down a little bit. But the first one is so good that it I don't think a D level is deserving of it.
Okay. So see, I'll vouch for that. I'm cool with that. So the next one here is The Exorcist, and this is gonna be a tough one because obviously the absolute status that The Exorcist has, the tagline "scariest movie of all time," and I've talked to a lot of people who beg to differ on that. They say it's not necessarily a film that's the scariest movie of all time. It may have been the time it was made, the censorship of the time as well. But I am one of those people who think it's a masterpiece. Do you agree with that, Chris?
Um, no.
No way.
So I do enjoy The Exorcist. I think it's a bit slow. Um, The Exorcist is a movie that terrified a generation and
Mm-hmm.
then bored the next generation. So I do think it's a little bit slow, but in my defense, or I guess in the movie's defense, I watched it a little bit later in my life than I did the other horror films. So I was already on like a fast pace of horror, like the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Streets, Texas Chainsaws, all that stuff before I watched The Exorcist. So it being a slower paced movie as a kid, I was like, nah, not for me. So as much as I enjoyed the scenes with Reagan, the head spinning around, and the music itself is iconic as it is. I really like it. I just always felt a little distant from the film itself, just because of the way I watched it and how slow it took place for me to really enjoy it. But I think the franchise itself, though, is not very good. Um, the second one
Hold
with
on.
what is it?
The first one, okay, here's the thing. The first one really, really, really has a lot going for it though, because here's the thing. I did agree with you at one point. And I think we've had this conversation once before. It's been a long time ago. But I remember we were both like on the same page. We're like, I think it's slow. It's not necessarily a film that's really carried its weight very well. But how long has it been since you rewatched that? Because something happened. Probably I watched it again after I met Linda Blair, which was a horrible experience. But aside from that, it had a lot that I went back to and I really enjoyed the second, like, the newest viewing.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. I think I watched it a few years before I met Linda Blair, which I didn't really have a bad experience with her. I know a lot of people have, but I didn't have a bad experience with her. And um, I do probably need to rewatch it again because it has been such a long time. I mean, at this rate, it's probably been close to 15 years or so since I've seen it. But I just feel like the film, we're ranking the whole franchise though. So I don't think that the first movie. I know the first movie is one of the most iconic horror films ever, but I think just the way that I watched it and the time frame that I watched it in makes it a little harder for me to enjoy, just because of those situations.
Well, here's the thing. I'm in full agreement with you with Exorcist 2. I think Exorcist 2 is a mess, even though they say there's other cuts of the movie out there that's been better. So obviously, I mean, I can't vouch for that. I'm only gonna go with the theatrical cut. However, Exorcist 3, that had a lot of redeeming factors. I thought that was really, really nice.
It did. Brad Dourif is really good in Exorcist 3. The jump scares, I think Exorcist 3 has one of the all-time scariest jump scares in a film, in film history, really. And it's just it's unsettling. It's really interesting of a story too to bring back the original. William Peter Blatty came back for that one. Um, when you go into the films afterwards, which Exorcist: The Beginning and Dominion prequel to The Exorcist. I know a little bit about the backstory to them, but I've never actually seen them just because I'm not the biggest fan of those type of films. I know that The Exorcist, well, Dominion was filmed first, and they filmed the entire movie. The studio didn't like what they didn't go in the route that they wanted to go with. So they hired the crew or a different crew to come back and just reshoot the entire film. And that's where you get the Exorcist: The Beginning. So once Exorcist: The Beginning came out, they were like, "Well, we have this whole other movie already made. What do we do with it?
Mm.
Oh, just throw it on a DVD and call it a day." Which is where Dominion comes from. So, and I don't know if you're including the TV series, but I've never seen the Exorcist TV series or not. But as much as I like the music of the first film and I certain scenes, the turning the head around and everything.
For all the right, with the iconic status of how much I love Exorcist and how well I like Exorcist 3, I don't care for anything else besides those two films. But those are so iconic and so good and so well talked about, not just by, the community, but in my eyes too. I think it's not an S or an A tier, but for me, I'm gonna go B tier. What do you think about that?
Um, the second movie is just it's so bad. It's almost unwatchable. It is a movie that did not need to be made. But I can't fully judge on it because I haven't seen The Exorcist: The Beginning or Dominion prequel to The Exorcist, so I can't fully base a franchise ranking for it. So I'll let you keep it at the B, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes if I get a chance to watch those movies.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
see if it adds or decreases.
Well, we're turning it back over to you with Resident Evil.
Resident Evil, a movie that everybody absolutely hates to talk about because they hate video game movies. They hate video game adaptations in the world of horror. I myself thought that the first movie was well done. What's her name?
Uh,
Mia
the
Jovovich.
Djokovic, yeah.
Yeah. So she does a really good job in this film. I thought the action was really good. The effects are a little dated. I don't know if you've watched it in a while, but the effects for the first movie is really dated. Um, I think the creature designs and everything for the entire franchise, the first, second, third, which is like Extinction or something, is really really well done. It's really interesting. The action is all there. It's a movie based on action more than it is on horror.
Right.
And when it comes to that, I've never played the video game, so I don't know how. I don't think we should relate the video game part of it into it.
I don't think so either.
Just the films themselves. Um, but the thing is, I think there is one I haven't seen yet. I haven't. There's one that was in 3D that came out in theaters, and I cannot remember which one that was. That might have been Afterlife,
I think it was wasn't it Extinction?
Extinction. No, Extinction was three. That's the one that was like took place in like there was like a Las Vegas. I can't remember, but
Wasn't that
yeah,
3D? The third one was
there was another one in 3D too, I believe. I think it was Afterlife might have been in 3D, but
mm,
then there was one after that one too, and I haven't seen that one. So whatever the newest one that came out was for Resident Evil, I have not seen it.
me either. I've
Um,
stopped watching after I think I watched Afterlife and that was it.
but with that being said, the movies aren't that well written. The plot is kind of basic, and they rely specific on action to get your entertainment. They relied on the 3D aspect of it. They were like, well, this movie probably won't be that good, so we need to make something to make a little bit more money. Let's put it in 3D. Um, I feel like the franchise as a whole should probably be around the D level.
Honestly, I was looking at C and D as well. So I am not gonna argue with that one bit. I personally I know people who love the franchises, not the franchises, but the franchise, I should say the films within the franchise, that's what I was trying to say. And I'll say I don't know what they see in it. I understand the video games are really terrifying, and I've seen some footage from the video games, and it looks scary as hell. I mean, yeah, it's great,
Yeah,
but
I don't think there's anything in the films or in the entire franchise that really stand out
mm-mm,
above other movies or other zombie films or anything. It's just the only reason that I even remember the films really is just because they were made from a video game and people hate video game horror films.
all right.
So and therefore, it's just kind of a forgettable franchise. And if one doesn't get made within the next 15 years, I think a lot of people will just completely forget about the movies ever existing, really.
Oh, I 100% agree as well. Moving on to the thing. This is going to be an interesting one because are
There's
there
only
so
two.
yeah, I'm thinking like I is it even really a I can almost argue that this is not a franchise. And the reason being is it was almost like a remake. It wasn't necessarily a sequel. It was the thing from another world, and then there was the thing, and they were both based off the same source material. It wasn't a the original one was a crap, the guy who did his girl Friday. I forgot the director's name, but he's a really well known director, and I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. 10 minutes from now, I'm gonna remember it. I liked it. I think it's great. I think both of them are fantastic. And honestly, you know me, Chris. You know how I feel about the thing. It's one of my favorite films of all time. Top five,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
So that has a soft spot. And the thing from another world also is up there with me too. It's not as good as the John Carpenter adaptation. And it's just so I love it because it's so fun. It's John Carpenter's like big summer action flick that takes place in the wintertime. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things.
yeah.
So
So I've never seen the Thing from Another World. Um, the original John Carpenter's The Thing is an absolute masterpiece. It is really scary. The
hey,
effects are some of the most amazing effects that's ever been done in filmmaking.
absolutely.
The prequel that came out, what, 2011, something like that. It was originally designed to be practical effects for the film, and the studio went in and covered up all the practical effects with digital effects because they didn't think modern audiences would enjoy that.
Hold on, wait. Should we count that? That's part of the franchise.
Yeah,
So there's three.
yeah, there's three.
I don't know.
Um,
I've seen
but
the
I,
2011 one and I completely forgot about it until just now.
yeah, I thought it was actually pretty decent. I thought the story was really good, and I thought they related the characters and the plot toward the original film really well.
Hmm.
It's a shame that the studio went in and covered up all the practical effects with digital because it could have made a much more fun film. But I don't think it really drags the quality of the original film. uh, down any at all because it's not bad. So I think right at the A level, I still think the Thing franchise holds up because that John Carpenter version is still such a great film.
But yeah, it's like okay, I'd put like the Thing, John Carpenter at S tier. I'd probably put the Thing from Another World at A tier. And I'd probably put the Thing prequel, sequel, whatever the hell it was, at D.
Yeah, I
But
think we're about on the same level, but I've not seen the Thing from Another World, so I can't vouch for that one.
but just because 2 out of 3 films are absolutely fantastic, it's the movie they were watching in Halloween. Was the thing
Yep.
from which is really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go A tier. I think that just the quality of those 2 of 3 films drag it up because it's like S tier plus for the Thing by John Carpenter. So obviously, I think that that really gets extra brownie points and it outweighs the 2011 one, like you were talking about, Chris. And that's why I think that it deserves to go with A. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be right there,
Sweet.
A tier.
The Fly.
All right, so The Fly, there's quite a few of them in this franchise actually. I think there's 5 total, which is weird thinking about a movie or a franchise based off The Fly. So we have the original The Fly, which, to be honest, I've never actually seen. There was a sequel to it called Return of the Fly. I've never seen that one either.
No way.
The Curse of the Fly. I've never seen it. Then we move into the remake of The Fly, and actually a really well-made movie. And it's got John, or what's his name? Oh my gosh, I can't think of his name.
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Yes, it's got Jeff Goldblum as the lead role. Um, I think he is a really perfect person to play that character, at least the way that they wanted him to be, with his like fast talking and just extravagant, characteristics that he had for the part.
Mm,
Really, really good. Uh, the only thing about it is, with me with slower paced movies, it's not my favorite of the remakes. It's a well done movie, but the story is a little too slow. I think the outcome is interesting and the effects are good, but all in all, it's not something that I always want to go back and rewatch. Um, there was a sequel made to it as well, to the remake, called The Fly 2, and it it wasn't an awful movie. It was different. It was cheesy. It almost felt like a made-for-TV film, to be honest, for The Fly 2. I think Mick Garris had something to do with it, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't know that.
I think he wrote it. I think Mick Garris wrote The Fly 2.
It sounds
Um,
familiar with you saying he wrote it because I think that I remember reading something. Let me check it real quick.
yeah, I think Mick Garris wrote The Fly 2.
Well, Mick Garris wrote it with Frank Darabont and Jim Wheat and Ken Wheat. So the Wheat brothers, Mick Garris and Frank Darabont. So there were technically 3 to 4 writers on it, which is kind of weird. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah,
about
the
the other
Fly
people. I,
2
I
looks
knew that
rough.
Mick Garris.
It was mediocre. It wasn't terrible. It was okay. But The Fly, like the 1950s The Fly, and then the one from like what 1985, 1986 or whatever. Both of those are great. And I love David Cronenberg.
Yeah, so there's a lot of the franchise I haven't seen yet. So, and I'm also David Cronenberg is he's one of those iffy filmmakers for me. I know a lot of people really, really love him, like absolutely adore everything that he does.
You know me?
But I am kind of on the iffy spot with him. It really has to be an interesting, fun story for me. Um, because I haven't seen 3 of the 5 films, I have to put it at the sea level.
Hey, that's exactly I was hovering it. If you guys aren't seeing this visually, I was hovering at C. I'm like, I think that's really good. And here's the thing, I almost would say B because it's so iconic and just the icon status and Jeff Goldblum's character and the two, like, the Fly, both of the Flies, like the 50s version, the 80s version, they're like almost like perfect films. Not quite as good as Reanimator, with Jeff Goldblum, which played at certain right around the same time. But I mean,
But
it's
wait, what?
right. Am I getting this wrong?
Reanimator?
Reanimator.
That's not that's not Jeff Goldblum.
Who is that? Why am I getting that wrong? Who am I getting confused? Hold
With
on. Combs.
It's Jeffrey Combs. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was like, what the fuck are you
No,
talking
yeah.
about?
I was like, wait, it's Jeff Goldblum, right? I'm like, wait, no, I'm getting the two names confused. Yeah, yeah. But honestly, it isn't as good as Reanimator, but still. But yeah, okay, I'll agree with the C tier. And moving on to Candyman, which is easily probably one of the most influential slasher films of the 90s for me. I adore the film. Too bad the sequels weren't there with the first remake. Have you seen the remake, Chris?
Yeah,
Solid, very solid film. I loved it.
yeah. I want to see where you place this on the chart first before I talk.
This is my first. This is the first one where I'm kind of like back and forth because I would either put the first Candyman at an A tier or S tier. It's gonna be going back and forth, and I'd probably, now I'm thinking about it, put it at A. Um, However, the rest of them is right down there at like the D level. However, the newest one's at B. So I know my math is like kooky right now. And I hate doing this. I hate doing this because I absolutely love Candyman. I love the remake. So it's like a 50-50 franchise. So I can't give it, I'm between B and C, and I have to give it a B. Just because the first one's so good. And the
Okay,
remake.
so I agree with you on the first film. The first film is truly a great horror film. It takes away from just jump scares and focuses specifically on your inner fears,
Mhm.
about what, Candyman appears, when you turn the lights out and say his name. So has to deal with the fear of dark.
Bless you. Chris, if you sneeze 5 times, you know what's gonna happen. Oh, one away.
Okay, so I really enjoy the first Candyman, and it's truly a frightening film. It takes away all jump scares that are associated with other horror films and relies specifically on your inner fears with things. So your fear of the dark with him, turning the lights out and saying Candyman's name, because that, I mean, if you've ever done that, I don't know if you've done that before, but it's actually kind of scary.
Oh yeah.
Even though you know nothing's going to happen, just the fact that the possibility of something happening in your mind or whatever, as soon as you turn those lights on, you just feel like something's going to be there, you're going to hear or see something, and it truly is scary. So that aspect itself makes it really fun. All right, so Candyman 2, it's not a bad movie. It's nowhere near the quality of the first film. It relies more on just basic slasher-esque type movies instead of the fear that the first film had. There's a lot more gore to it. There's some really cool scenes in it as well. Really good at makeup effects with Tony Todd. I think he does a great job in all of the films that he's in with it, but it's just nowhere near the quality of the first film. Part three, I believe it was I don't know if it was theatrical or not. I think it was a made-for-TV film
Yeah,
in
that
the
one was.
90s, and the quality in it dropped lower than what part two did. But then we go into the remake, and we have a very well done version of the Candyman, which technically it's kind of a sequel. So it's not really a prequel or a remake or anything. It's a sequel,
Mhm.
and I thought it was handled very well, very respectful of the original film, and respectful of the franchise. And I can't remember the person who did it. It was a female. It was directed by a female, and I thought she did an absolutely amazing job at creating tension, at creating she worked with like shadows and stuff throughout the whole entire film, and it was just a really fun and entertaining look at like the sequel 20, 30 years later, something like that.
Right.
So I really enjoyed it. So I don't know if I would go as far as putting it at B level. I think I would have to put it at a C level for the whole franchise.
Tough call. But yeah, I mean, Jordan Peele did the producing of that one. I think that the replacement Candyman did a great job. I was so against Tony Todd not being Candyman. He made an appearance. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it yet. But I mean, like it was solid. It really was. Now this next franchise though, are we gonna skip this? Have you seen any of these?
I can't even
Camp
see what it says.
Camp Blood.
Camp Blood. Okay, so um, I have seen the first one, but it was one of those Camp Blood franchise is one of those very low budget, non-studio films, a very independent film. It was done by Sterling Entertainment, and they are one of those companies that does, no budget films. And they're the same people that I don't know if you've seen them, but they've done stuff. It's part of a franchise. It does like Camp Blood 666 and Go the Children of Camp Blood, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um, they also make a franchise called like Axe Murderer or something like that. Axe Grinder. There we go. Axe
not
Grinder.
familiar with that one.
I would not. I haven't seen hardly any of them. So I've only seen the first film. So let's just move on.
Okay, so we're going on to the Howling.
Oh man. Okay, so I don't think we should spend a lot of time going through every film because there's quite a bit of them.
Right.
So the first movie, fantastic werewolf movie.
Good.
Um, Dee Wallace does a great job being Dee Wallace as she always does. Um, the only thing that this movie is missing is, I mean, the practical effects are really, really good, and I think the werewolf is some of the most interesting werewolves in horror history. I know John Landis's version gets really good credit for being the best werewolf transformation, and I
Yeah.
don't disagree with it, but I think the actual like man in suit, a werewolf in The Howling is a lot more fun and creepy than just the head of the werewolf that's getting attacked or attacking people. Um, it's a very classic film, but it does have a little bit of a lacking in the story. There's just a very basic concept to it. And it's a little slow at times as well. You really have to watch the movie just for the end, for the last like 15 minutes to really get anything out of it. Part two is very, very silly, very fun.
Mhm.
Lots of hairy people, hairy werewolves, and
There's hair
yeah, werewolf orgies. I mean, yeah.
everywhere.
Part three is weird because it was like this Australian um, marsupial type werewolves that was
Mhm.
really strange looking, and it was more of a comedy than it was anything else. Part
It has my
four,
favorite artwork, though. I wanted to just say that. So moving on. Sorry.
the part four is like the I think it's called the original Nightmare or something. It's another slow pay. I think it's a made for TV film, very slow.
Not
Part
seen it.
five takes place in a castle, I believe, almost like a Clue type, like who's the werewolf? Everybody here knows that something's happening, but nobody knows who the werewolf is. Um, Part six is where they mix a lot of things together. They mix werewolves and other creatures and stuff. It's a very strange. It's almost like a movie that wasn't supposed to be a Howling film, but it had a werewolf in it, so they were like, let's just call it a Howling film. Part seven is known for being how bad it is with like line dancing throughout the film that makes no sense. It was an independent movie that nobody what the studios didn't want to make anything, but this person was a fan of the franchise and somehow got the licensing to make it. So he made his own film, but he didn't do a very good job. And it's all like local actors that were in the film, so it's a very strange version of The Howling. There was a remake that came out 2009, something like
Where's this
that,
even on?
called The Howling. What was that called? The Howling. The fuck was that called?
I've only watched the first three. I never watched the 2009. I thought it wasn't that one just called The Howling? Am I crazy?
Yeah, I can't think of what that one's called, but
I mean,
I
I
didn't
thought
think it was that bad actually. I thought they did a lot of really cool effects with the werewolves. Again, the whole walking around werewolf look and everything it was more of like a coming of age story more than anything. And then with thrown in there with werewolves. But there's so much bad with this franchise that even though that the first film is really good, um, God, the rest of them are just so awful.
no, there was a
Um,
Howling in 2017. Is that the one you're talking about?
2017.
It's called The
No, no, the one I'm talking about was like 2009 or 2008 or something.
But now The Howling in 2017, that's part of the franchise. That was a like a remake almost.
I
And
have no idea. I've never seen it, never heard of it.
Oh,
But
let's be honest. There's a million of these things.
because it's so bad, I because some of those movies are so bad, especially Part 7. I got to throw this out there, and I got to put this down to F.
Not even D.
No,
See, I
no.
have to agree.
There's
I have to almost take your word on it though, because I've watched the first three. I like the first one pretty well. The second one was okay. The third one was not good at all. Um, but for based off of what I saw, I would have went D. But then you mentioned all these terrible, terrible sequels, so I'm like, I can understand how I can go from D to F now.
yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna second that right now because the Human Centipede's next, and that is F. It's obvious reasons I did not enjoy these films. I also think it's ridiculous whenever they have a horror franchise out there that's trying to just deliver shock factor for the hell of it being shock factor. Really small focus on story at all, and they're more so just focused on like, hey, how can we gross out this audience? Can we even call a horror or is it exploitation? I mean, it's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I agree with the whole aspect of that, but I've never actually seen the movies based off of those, plot points alone, just because of what it is. So I've never been interested in watching the movie, and I mean, maybe one day I will, but at this point, I still don't have any interest at all. So I'll take your word for it.
Period. Okay, so that's on F. And Chris, we're going back over to you with Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Ooh, a very fun, interesting story. So it was based off an original short. I think that was filmed on like 8 millimeter, or 16 millimeter, something like that. And they decided that they wanted to turn it into a feature film. So, with hardly any budget at all, they created the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which with an amazing theme song and everything. Um, Still a very dumb and fun, silly film. Something that you can actually watch with like a group of people, just make fun of. It's nothing that you want to take serious. There was a couple sequels to it as well. There was Return of the Killer Tomatoes, the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Eat France, Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes. I don't remember exactly. There was even a Killer Tomatoes animated TV show, like
I never
cartoon.
watched that one.
And I've never seen the cartoon either, but I do know of it. I've seen like clips and stuff from it, but never fully watched it. So oh, it's really hard to rank it because from where I haven't really seen the sequels or anything, but based off the first film and just how fun and silly it is, I would put it probably around a D level.
Oh man, that's a little high for that for that for me. No, that's the thing. Okay, I also have to take your word on this one because I've only watched the first one, so I can't necessarily speak to the rest of them. But
Yeah.
I mean, the first, I mean, I can understand why you would go from F to D, so I can't hate on it too much. But man, it's pretty. Anybody who hasn't seen Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or seen any like footage from it, I almost would say you could just YouTube it and watch some of the footage, you'd be fine. Because it's pretty it's something you'd want to just watch like after a couple beers in, you
Yeah,
know.
it's definitely something you want to watch just for fun to make fun of it.
All
That's really
right,
what it is. But it does have redeeming qualities to it because it is pretty funny.
Boogeyman. I can't. I'm gonna have to. I've seen one of them and I barely remember it. Do you remember if you've seen any of these, Chris? Do you want to speak to
I
this?
have I have seen all three of them. I don't remember anything from part two or part three, but I do remember a little bit from part one. I watched it in theaters when it came out, and I remember being really interested in it because there was the trailer for it made it where, what's in the dark, the ghost or whatever can only appear in the dark. So when the lights are on, the ghost isn't there. And the trailer really made it out to be a really creepy film where the ghost is hiding in the closet, and when the door opens up when the kid's laying in bed, that's when the ghost comes out to get him. And it's about this guy who goes in search for, he was a kid, all this stuff happened to him. He goes back to his childhood home when he's grown up, and all these things start happening again. And it was not anything really spectacular. I don't know how that there were sequels that were made to it because I don't remember it being that doing that well at the theater.
It wasn't successful, and I think the biggest draw was the fact that Saw had just come out and they were using, you know, Jigsaw. Yeah, it was almost to me. To you, I don't remember because it's. I don't know if you remember it being this way, but I remember the marketing almost feeling like they were trying to pull off like, oh, this is Jigsaw in this movie. Like it had Saw everywhere, right?
No, I no. I mean, it might have came out around the same time as that movie, but I don't know what you're talking about with like the whole Saul thing because the movie is about a ghost.
Let me fact check myself now.
You don't you don't even know what movie we're talking about.
Let me look.
Yeah, it has like it's about this ghost that can only appear in in dark,
I watched this
and
one. Is that the one you're talking about?
I can't see it.
It has Barry Watson in it. So this is about monster that's yeah. This is it. There was okay, I'm getting see this is the thing because I'm getting these confused now because he wasn't in this one, but there was sequels. Let me find them here. And there it is. He was in one of these, I swear. Am I there he is. He was in Boogeyman too.
Oh, Tobin Bell.
Yeah, Tobin Bell, he was in Boogeyman 2, and I don't think he was in yep, he was briefly in 3, it says. Now keep in mind, guys, we have not seen 2 or 3. I
I've
remember
seen it, but I've seen two and three. I just don't remember anything about them whatsoever. Nothing.
I think
I
it's
just
Tobin
remember. I
Bell.
just know that I watched them.
And I'm getting confused because it's been so long since I've watched, and I remember it being absolutely terrible. Like the first one too was absolutely terrible. But I remember the second one being marketed like heavily off of Saw along with the third one. You can like probably YouTube like some of the I almost like want to pull it up just to like watch to see how much Saw they had in there. But yeah, I think that the fact that the first one did so terribly, they wanted to like bring in something that was a little bit more exciting for the second one. So Tobin Bell was kind of like, their scapegoat with that. But do you want to rank it or do you want to skip it?
Well, you put it at F, so let's
It's
just keep
it's
it at
it's an F. Oh yeah.
F.
All right. So Lake Placid. This is a tough one because I almost just want to go right here too. I thought the first one was not that good. I didn't think I haven't seen all the sequels. I saw the second one. I have the first two. Um, we love Betty White. I don't know. It's just it was not. I thought it was very like a little slow, kind of boring, cheesy. I don't know how would you describe it, Chris? It's just like I
Yeah,
did.
a really slow version of Alligator.
Uh-huh.
Just cool effects. They had a really cool giant crocodile. Was it a crocodile or an alligator? I don't even know the
This
difference
was. I
between
think
like
it's.
how you classify. But yeah, Betty White's in it, and she has a really funny scene. She's entertaining. Other than that, yeah, the story is just very basic. Just nothing really redeemable there. And I've never seen any of the sequels. I know they made it all the way to Lake Placid versus something. So I think it was like Lake Placid versus Anaconda that it made it up to. So if
Hmm,
that tells you anything right there, there was a versus sequel in there. I would keep it right at the F level that you're at.
sweet. All right. Let's do a rapid. You want to do a rapid fire of these next one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. You want to do the next 8 rapid fires?
Sure.
All right. So open water for you.
Open water, a really, really good atmospheric ocean killer. I guess you can call it a killer shark movie, but it's not really a killer shark movie. It's just kind of more fear of being stuck in the water. The sequel is actually a lot of fun that I think is very overrated. I would put it at probably around C.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm gonna go scanners here, and scanners for me gets a D. I thought
Ooh,
scanners. I thought scanners was it was okay. Scanners 2 and 3, I did not care for whatsoever. I had the Scream Factory. I've watched both of them. I was like, maybe it was just the transfer. I don't know, and I just do not connect with these films.
yeah. I watched the David Cronenberg movie. Thought it was fun, but not the greatest ever.
It's all
Part
right.
two and part three, I thought was really entertaining to me. I just love the aspect of somebody walking around with telekinetic power that could just make things catch fire or explode at any time. There's also Scanner Cop and Scanner Cop 2. That's part of that franchise as well. And I think both of those are a lot of fun in their own little cheesy way as well. I would rank them probably at the C level.
Okay. You have a big responsibility here, Chris. The Evil Dead.
The Evil Dead, one of the most classic horror films of all time. Bruce Campbell does one of the best jobs at making a lovable character, most iconic character in horror history as well with Ash. The sequel is just as fun, more goofy than anything. Part three is really where you get that Bruce Campbell feel for the character. That's really where he's like heightened at the most comical level. Um, when it comes to the remake, not a big fan of it. I thought the TV show was really, really good. Looking forward to the new one coming out soon. But
Mm-hmm.
just because of the first three, I'm going to put them at the A level. No, no, no,
I've just put
no.
Evil Dead at the S tier for you guys, so thank you. Okay, I'll give it to you. I think that Army of Darkness was very good, but there's nothing you can do to touch Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. Hand in hand, all day long. I love both of those films for different reasons.
Yep, agreed.
I would have probably went S, but I can understand how it could be A as well, and I'm not gonna be too angry about that. So I'm gonna save my three. Okay. The Terror Tunes. I've never watched any of these.
I've never watched them either, so
Moving
move
on to
on.
Scary Movie. Scary Movie, can it be ranked? It's parody, so how can you
It's a
really
parody, but yeah, you can still rank them. I mean, the first two scary movies are some of the funniest parody films I've ever seen in my entire life. I laugh so hard at the first two movies. And I think even as well as the first one is, part two has the most funniest opening parody to any horror film, any film in general ever made. The
that's
parody
finally
of The
nice.
Exorcist, the parody of The Exorcist when the opening of Scary Movie 2 is absolutely hilarious. And I love the first two. When you get into part three, I think part three is still funny, but you can see where losing the Wayans brothers really hurt their jokes that they had, the writing of it. Part four was awful. Part five was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I really wish they would actually jump back in with the Wayans brothers and make some more of them. But because of the first two, I'm going to put them at C.
I think that's fair. All right. Wishmaster. Sadly, and this is very, very sadly to say, I've not seen any of the Wishmaster films. So do you want to speak to this, Chris? Because I have not gotten around to watching any of these.
The first one is actually a pretty fun movie. It's your typical you be careful what you wish for genie type of film. The character of the Wishmaster is very memorable. He's kind of iconic in my opinion. Part two is really good. Actually, I think the first one might be it's got Robert Englund with it. I can't remember what all if he was just in it or if he had something to do with actually making it or not. I can't remember. But the second one it's fun, it's silly, not as good as what the first one is, really. Part three, not very good. There's actually part four and five as well that I think that are like direct to DVD, low quality films. Nothing really to watch. I would probably rank them around the D level.
Okay. The Lost Boys. People love the film. Um, I didn't really care for it that much. I've not seen them all. How many are there even? Because I know
There's three.
I know I've seen two. I don't know if I've seen. I think it's weird because I think I've seen one of the three, if I'm not mistaken. I think one was okay. The one I watched was not very good. I don't. It's a very forgettable franchise. Whenever somebody comes up to me and says they like the Lost Boys, I'm like, I don't really see that much greatness for it. Um, to be fair, I'll go C. I think that basically sums it up pretty much.
I think the first one's pretty interesting, especially with the cast they got. Corey Feldman and Corey Haim did a great job with it as well. It definitely felt like a kid like explorer film, like the Goonies and stuff, like the kid adventure. The creative ways that they were killing vampires, like every single time they killed one, it was a different type of death with, where they explode or catch fire or just melt away. Really cool. The sequels that came out years later, not very good. I remember the second one. I always get these two confused. There was one called The Thirst and one called The Tribe. And one of them is okay and the other one is absolutely awful.
The Tribe is notoriously, I believe, known as to be like a fairly decent film, and some people there is like a fan base for it, but The Thirst, everybody hates that one. And I
Yeah,
mean,
so I would be okay with either C or D.
sweet. So we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say C. I don't know. Maybe it should go D. I don't know. We'll keep it at C. We'll keep it at C. Okay. Chris, Ginger Snaps.
Ginger Snaps, the coming of age story about a girl transitioning into adulthood and actually becoming a werewolf. Very cool plot, very fun, really cool werewolf in it as well. It's kind of an underrated movie, in my opinion. The sequel, the second one, Ginger Snaps Back, is also okay. Really cool werewolf in that one as well. Returning characters, fun. Third movie takes place in like a prequel. It's like back in time. I don't really remember much about it. I just remember not liking it very much. I would probably place the Ginger Snaps films in I'd probably put them in C.
Whew, okay. I was hoping it put them like in D or F. I can handle C because I do love the first one a lot. And I would almost say it would be B tier, but I mean C, I'm good with C. So Feast, I'm immediately going to put this in. I've only watched the first one. I've heard the other two. Have you seen the other two? Or
Yes, they're awful.
yeah, and the first one was not that great either. It's kind of funny because this was a Project Greenlight film, and that's how
Yeah.
it got made on HBO.
Yeah, and I remember watching the Project Greenlight as they were making it, week by week and really enjoying it and really looking forward to it. I thought it was really fun for the first movie.
The making
Really
of
cool
was more
idea.
interesting, I think, than the film itself.
Yeah, yeah, I like the idea. Like I like the creatures and monsters and stuff, and the gore was all practical. The sequels were so much comedy in them. Like they were one of those films that what can we do to shock you? So we're going to throw these most stupid, outlandish things we can at the screen just to get a reaction out of you. And I don't like that type of stuff. I did not like two or three at all. And I think that was Gulager, not John Gulager, but his son. Yeah, John Gulager, because Clue Gulager is the dad. John
Yeah,
Gulager is the one who made Feast franchise. So, yeah,
Kluge
I've never really liked anything that he did besides that first Feast movie.
agreed. I gave it on the D level. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, I would put it there. Yeah.
All right, sweet. Okay, so I Spit on Your Grave is up next.
Okay, so this is kind of a hard franchise to rank. The first one is you can't really say you like the movie because it's a movie that makes you feel horrible.
Right.
It's a well-made movie. It definitely put out and set out to do what it did, or it did what it was supposed to do, I should say.
It's kind of like The
Um,
Last House on the Left.
yeah, a more extreme version of Last House on the Left.
Right.
I actually did like the movie. I thought it's one of those movies where if you go into a movie knowing what it's about and wanting to see that, then you know what to expect from it, and I think it really does well in that part. I know that there was a remake that came out, and there was a couple sequels to the remake as well, but I've never watched them whatsoever. I would probably put just based off the first movie. I cannot rank anything else, but based off the first movie, I would put it at either a C or D, just because of the impact that the movie had and the way that what the movie is supposed to represent. So
I do want to say we have movies in the F, D, C, B, and A tier. We don't have a single movie in the S tier so far.
Oh, you
Fantastic.
just wait.
I know what you're thinking. All right. So Phantasm. Ooh, Chris, what do we do with Phantasm? Because man,
You know, if
Phantasm.
okay, I wish we could rank it on based off of one, two, three, and four.
Yes. I get that completely. And even
Because if we put it from one, two, three, and four, it's getting an S. But the fact that part five is made and it's a direct sequel with the same characters, um, it's
and
not
part
a very
four,
good
let's just be
movie.
honest. Part four is not necessarily all that great either.
I really like part four.
No,
The idea behind it where they take footage that was unused from previous films and use that as flashback scenes. So you're seeing scenes from that film that was never ever seen before, but it was filmed. They had it, so why not use it? And I just think that was a really clever idea to have a flashback scene with a character because a lot of times they'll just flash back to scenes from the first movie,
mm,
you know. And so instead of doing that, you're flashing back to a scene from the 1970s that you never saw before, which I think is really cool. And I think the idea of getting to know the backstory behind of how the tall man became the tall man was interesting. It may not be the best way to deal with that story, but I still think it was interesting. Anything with Angus Scrimm is always top tier in my opinion. I think he's an amazing that well, at least that character is an amazing iconic character, and I love everything about him.
I love Angus Scrimm, and he's such a genuine guy. The thing, have you seen the work prints of either Phantasm or Phantasm 2? Because what you just said there reminded me. I was at a convention one time, and there was a guy there who had bootlegs, which I mean, we can have a whole entire conversation on buying bootlegs, but ultimately these were Phantasm work prints, and they were Don Coscarelli's personal collection of the original Phantasm and Phantasm 2 cuts of the movie, like almost like a director's cut. And a lot of lost footage was in them. And I have them, and it really enhances the movie. And it has a lot of like cutout footage. It doesn't make them better films, I want to say. I do think that the final product was the best version, for sure. But still, I'm just almost delaying at this point, Chris, because I don't want to rank it. I don't know what you. Okay, I got this. So, Phantasm for me is gonna go in A tier, and it's as close as it can possibly get to S. And keep in mind, guys, Phantasm is one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. It does taper off a bit, but it's so close to an S. Well, I would go
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
The Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay. Uh, I know that you have a story of getting into the horror franchise from A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I don't know if that helps with the way that you rank this or not, but I
Choose your
love
words carefully, Chris.
I love every single Nightmare on Elm Street movie except for the remake. I think all of them are absolutely fun, interesting. The character of Freddy Krueger is by far one of the best horror icons you can have in the horror world. With his one-liners, the way he looks, just everything about him is unique and unique to Robert Englund as well. But the remake itself is absolutely awful. I mean, one of the worst single pieces of horror films ever created.
No, one of the single worst pieces of film in general.
Ooh.
But even screw the remake. Just get let's just complete. The other films are just so good. Even the second
Yeah,
one. People hate the second one. I hated it. I didn't like it either, but I have found a love for the second.
I really like the second one as well. I think
It's
the
not,
only one the only one that's in the franchise besides the remake that I think has a flaw to it is Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare for a
yeah.
couple different reasons. One being the whole 3D aspect that they tried to film to make it to make it more popular or more financial or whatever. And just the whole like it was a serious film, but with these weird, quirky, dreamlike things to it as well. I mean, we are dealing with a franchise that was based off dreams and everything, but that movie just has a weird tone to it, and you can't tell whether some things are being like taken really serious, and then you go from there to him playing a video game. It's just very strange tone. So as much as I want to put it at superior, I think I have to put it at A. Yeah, keep staring at me.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna
Listen,
do
I
it.
like the Friday the 13th franchise more than I like Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I'm ranking it higher, okay?
I'm gonna
Because
bump you.
I think overall the franchise is an A level.
I'm bumping you. I'm using one of my
Okay.
thumbs. It is. I have to give this an S. I absolutely, and I can give you a million reasons why. And I understand how you feel about the remake. I hate the remake as well, and I do understand that like there are small little flaws of an Nightmare on Elm Street, but just the idea how Robert England plays the character every single not every single adaptation, but every single installment of the franchise all has something so like I don't know, there's something like very different about each of them that gives its own charm. Also, I love how Wes Craven like redefines the horror genre every single decade. We get, from the 70s, the 80s, all the way into the 90s with Scream. So it's just such, I mean, I cannot see it anywhere else besides S. Because if you think about it, like we're ranking entire franchises, and a lot of these franchises doesn't have every one of the films are perfect. And if you want to think about like a franchise that's as close to as perfect as it possibly can, even though it went through hundreds of people's hands, like we're talking, throughout the span of like making Nightmare on Elm Street, look at how many people worked on this, and look how many like opportunities it had for it to go very wrong. And did it go wrong? I mean, yes, at certain times, but it still held up so well. So for me, it is an S.
Okay, I'll
Next
I'll, I'll allow it.
up. Alien. Okay, so Alien for me is definitely a hard one as well. We're getting to the hard ones here because I really love Alien. I didn't love Alien so much. Alien versus Predator was fun. I think this is an easy B. I really do. Without even
I'll
saying,
take your word for it.
you haven't watched them?
The only ones I've ever watched were the Alien versus Predator films, the one and then the Requiem that came out in theaters. Had never seen either of the original. I've never seen one Aliens or Part Three at all, or the newer stuff either.
Oh, Alien 3, there's a story to that. And a lot of people's probably listening to this like, wait, Alien 3 is probably like the worst one ever made, but there's so much that went into that as well. And David Fincher, we know he's very capable. The studio took the film over from him after he shot it and completely butchered it. So we'll give it a little pass because a lot of people might say, oh, well, it might not be a B for that. But I definitely think giving it the benefit of the doubt and the fact that Alien and Aliens were so good and it's been such a like a consistent series. And Prometheus was good. It's getting a B. Perfect. The
Okay.
Blob.
The Blob. So the original Blob is a lot of fun. It was ahead of its time, I think, back in the 1957, 58,
Right. Yeah.
somewhere, maybe even less than that. I can't remember. Um, I thought it was really entertaining. The effects were really well done, very creative with what they had. The remake is probably one of the best remakes that's out there as well.
It is.
When people talk about, great remakes in the world of horror, I always throw in the Blob. There was a sequel that came out back in the 70s, I believe, from the like from directly from the original Blob called Beware the Blob, or also in some cases known as Son of Blob, which was not very good. It very, very low budget, very slow. I would probably throw the Blob in with probably I'd put it at D level.
I was not
Yep,
expecting that.
yep. So I mean, I really like the remake and everything, but I think overall, as a franchise, I think it's got a lot of flaws.
Yeah, listen, guys, if you've never seen any of the blobs before, the one you need to see is that remake from the 80s. It is so good. It is so fun. I remember Twilight Time put it out and it went out of print and I paid 55 bucks, which nowadays that's a Vinegar Syndrome title, but back then it was expensive to have to collect a movie for more than like 20 bucks. So the fact that I went on my way and paid 55 bucks because I love the film so much and I wanted to own it, I mean, that should say something there. So turning it over to the Omen, Damien, right next to the Exorcist 666. No, see, the Omen to me is boring. I've not seen them all. I watched the sequel. The first one was okay. It sets right with Amityville, and a lot of people is like, "Oh, well, Amityville's great," and some people's like Amityville's not so great. And I'm definitely in the group that's leaning towards not so great. The Omen was not necessarily any better for me either. It's kind of like a franchise that I forget about. You know, I don't forget about it existing, but it's just a very forgettable film. So what you think? I think it's forgettable.
Well, I've only seen the remake.
Oh, well,
So I have a weird story with trying to watch the original film, which I think I'll just explain on a later time because we're pushing the time here tonight. But yeah, I do have a story about trying to watch the first movie and not having a good time watching it. Um, so I can't judge this franchise. I've only seen the remake.
I feel like I'm doing a terrible job of like summarizing it because it's like, how can you summarize an entire franchise and how you feel about every single film in a matter of 20 seconds? Because guys, we understand how long this takes, so we're really trying to fly through here. So I feel like we can't say much about them because we have to just rank them. But I mean, there's so much that could be said about all of these, honestly. And you know what? I'm sure Chris has a lot to say, don't you, Chris, about this next one. And well, we need to tell them. We need to tell them. The Omen for me gets a D. And
Okay. I'll
so moving on to this little unknown film that you've probably never seen before, Chris. It's called Critters.
never heard of it.
No, so we'll just go to put that down here. Just don't know.
So if you know me,
This is
you
unfair
know.
too, guys. So he's gonna definitely give you something completely crazy here, probably. So I wouldn't take his word.
Okay. So if you know me, you know that I absolutely love everything related to the Critters franchise, especially the first four. I think they are the most fun and entertaining films in the world of horror, and it's just the fun part of it that makes it worthwhile. The first one can be scary at times, but it's made specifically to to make you laugh, especially part two and part three. Four gets crap, but I think the acting in it is really good, and the story is actually really good. There are some stuff that came out. There was a TV series that came out in 2019 called Critters: A New Binge, which was not very good at all. There was a sci-fi movie that came out in 2019 as well called Critters Attacks, which a lot of people don't like. I thought it was a fun film and it was a fun follow-up for it. Definitely not on the par with the first four, but based a bias base, by the way, off my sincere love for this franchise. It is my favorite movie, favorite franchise ever created, and
Whoa.
I think the creatures in the film, the critters, when they mate, at least in the first first four, they look like real animals. I think they, if you were watching that as a kid, it looks like something that could be a real life creature, and I thought that was a really cool. Um, so yes, I even though that the last two films have sucked, for me, Critters is going in superior.
Even after the last like the ones that was on what was that on again? That streaming service. It was supposed to
Shutter,
go was on but it was supposed to
yeah.
go it was made almost like a web series.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like a Verizon. I think it was Verizon,
Was
some
it
type of
Fios? Like a Fios streaming?
something like that. But it was through Verizon, and it was supposed to be a free streaming service that they provided. But then that went out of business or got shut down or something before the film came out or before the series came out. So they redid it and put it on Shutter. in a ten episode run, which is basically they filmed it like a regular movie and just cut it into 10-minute segments. The movie that came out afterwards, Critters Attacks, is not as good as what the other films in the franchise is either. But based off of my absolute love and passion for the first four movies, they could make 900 movies afterwards and they all suck, and I would still put it in superior.
And you know what? I know what it means to you. So as a friend, I am not going to bump that down. I would probably put it with I mean honestly, here's the thing. If you're going to talk about the most recent ones, it would definitely be pushed way down. If you're going to talk about the first four films together, it's probably right around B, C. But I mean, it's gonna be hard to hold on to that rating with the newest ones. But honestly, you could almost exclude those because part of the original like arc was like the four. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I could see
yeah.
you like forgetting about the whole debacle we've had lately. So the Hitcher. I love the Hitcher. I think the Hitcher's great. He does hitchhike in it, which is a plus, unlike Dashcam. So you know, have you seen any of these Hitcher films past the first? So I've seen the first and I love it.
Yep, first one's great. The second one, I think, has like Jake Busey in it. Not good at all. Not
Mm.
awful or anything, but just it's not really that good. The remake is one of those okay remakes, I think. It tries too much to be like the first movie, but just doesn't succeed in it. So I would probably put that around the D level.
Really, because I would probably give like the first Hitcher an A, but the other ones definitely did not interest me. I heard how bad the remake was as well. So I was like, is it a C or is it a D? You think D really?
It's between it kind of sets right on the border between C and D, in my personal opinion. I know people would probably hate me just because the first one is so loved, but that's just where I got to put it.
Honestly though, I think that whenever you think The Hitcher as a film, just like the first one, it's very, very high marks. But if you think about the whole entire franchise, it's kind of like you scratch your head. It's like, is The Hitcher actually a franchise? So we're talking about franchises. So I'm gonna go D as well.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a tough one too, Chris. Cloverfield, because it doesn't have many films.
Yeah, I've only actually seen the first movie, and I thought the theater experience from the first one was a really cool experience. It's one of the best theater experiences I've ever had. The audio, that movie was made specifically to have a theater experience. And when you're in the theater watching it and the audio has there's a scene where the army is like marching from in front of you to the back of you, or the camera guy or whatever. And the audio in the theater literally goes from the sound coming from the front of where the screen is, and it literally jumps and makes its way across the theater to the back of you where you only hear it coming from behind you. Was really, really cool. Very atmospheric with it. Doesn't have the same effect as it does on DVD or Blu-ray watching it at home or anything. Um, can't judge for the sequels, never seen them. But based off the first movie, my ranking would be a B level ranking.
Honestly, I'm okay with that because the sequel to it was about as good as the first. It was different. It wasn't filmed the same style, but it was well received. I think that people thought it was gonna be a whole entire series. Never happened, sadly. But I think B level would be pretty good for it. This is another tough one. All these are tough because now on the other hand, we have Children of the Corn. And Jesus, how many do we have to go through with that? It's like, has there been like 82 of those as adaptation? I mean,
There is a lot. I believe that the remake, I don't know if it's a remake or not, but there's a new one coming out in a couple days, I think, actually, to streaming services. And I want to say it's like the 10th film in the franchise.
no way. I have definitely not seen. Now I'm gonna have to stand up and say there was one that was probably like 2009, 2010, and it was like a remake, and it was pretty good, honestly, and it was straight to video.
Actually, actually, I think it might be the 12th one in the franchise, or 11th at least. Because part six was 666, and then we had part seven, which was Revelations, part eight, which was the remake, I believe. Um, and then we had The Runaway, which would have been 9, and then there was one after that. Genesis, I think, was 10, and then now
There's
this one. So this, I think it's 11, possibly 12. I can't. I think I might be missing one,
there
but
is 12, yes.
12. Okay.
The one that came out in 2009. Did you ever
Yeah,
see
that was
it?
the sci-fi. That was the sci-fi remake.
And it honestly, like, I didn't hate it. Is that weird?
I didn't hate it either. It gets
And
a lot of crap though.
oh yeah, people hate it. And I'd be honest with you, I didn't hate that one. That's the one I wanted to bring up because that's the one that's the most underrated. I was not a fan of the here's the thing I can't say I love the remake that was on sci-fi, but not say I didn't like the original, but I didn't love the original either that much. I did watch the second one. I literally have only seen like five of these.
I really like part 2 and 3, just how cheesy they are. Just they're just fun, cheesy films. You can't really take them too serious. Didn't really care for part 4, part 5, part 6, or part 7, or part 8, or whatever. But
Yeah.
um, I
How
would
long?
probably put the franchise down at probably a D level.
That's where I mean, honestly, that's where I put it, and it's pushing F. It really is, and I think it's just because there's been so many, the bad outweigh the good. But we'll give the benefit of the doubt of it being, such a, a long running series to keep going with it. So we'll bump them up one, give them a little credit there for it. So D for that. Um, Creep Show.
One of the best anthology movies ever made.
Oh well.
Um, it's a little long, but I think it doesn't take away from how good it is. Part 2, really, really fun, really good anthology as well. Not as good as what the first film is. Part 3 I've never seen, but I've heard really bad things. The TV series is really well done as well. The one that's on Shudder, Creepshow, the series. I think they're on season 3 or something now, or they already made 3. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's continuing on or not, but that's a really fun TV series as well. I would put this franchise at probably an A or B. It probably borders the line of A and B.
I could get behind B. You want to do B?
Yeah, we'll put it B. Put it at
Um,
B.
I think that's fair, and it's a hit or miss. I mean, the Creep Show television series was Shudder's most watched television series ever did, and for all the right reasons. There were a couple that were not so great on like episodes of it, but you know what was really cool is they brought together a lot of like indie filmmakers today, and they like really pulled off something that was special. So that was something that you definitely is worth checking out on Shudder. Um, yeah, like Creep Show 2, I really enjoyed both of those. Creep Show 3, not so much. Um, so yeah, okay. We'll go with B. I know what you did last summer. I've not watched the remake. You said it was terrible, right?
The well, there's okay. So the original one, I Know What You Did Last
TV
Summer.
series.
I thought
Yeah.
it was a uh, pretty decent ripoff of Scream. The sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, not very good. Takes place in like the Bahamas or something. Part 3, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, doesn't have anything to do with the first 2 films, just name alone in business wise. There's a TV series. I watched like half of the first episode, and I never had any interest in finishing it. And then it got canceled by Amazon or whatever company released. I think it was Amazon. And because it was canceled, I was like, well, I don't really want to go back and watch it now because I already know that it doesn't get picked up. Um, I would probably put that at I'd put it at D.
That's
I
what
think the first mo I think the first movie is a good enough ripoff of Scream to qualify for that. Yeah.
sweet. Yeah, I'm right there with you. The first one was okay. That's about where it ends for me. Do we know anything about the Brotherhood?
Nope, never seen it.
Me either. How about the ABCs of Death? You watch those?
I have seen the first one. I absolutely hated it. It's
Honestly,
one of those yeah, it's one of those movies where it's an anthology, but it's not based off like any type of continuity or anything. It's just 27 different filmmakers all given different letters, and then they have to make a short film based off of that letter that they're given. And it's a cool concept, but it seemed like every single one of those was either someone trying to be really artsy or just trying to be really, really dumb with it. And it doesn't work. Did not like it. It's really, really, really long. Every single you get about halfway through it and you're like, man, I'm ready for this to be over with already. And then it still has like another, 15 letters left to go through, and you're just ready to be done.
Yeah, and the thing is like they're not very fun to like the actual story themselves aren't fun, and they're not able to really get deep into it either because they're only like what 4 or 5 minutes each. And you can do a lot in 4 or 5 minutes, but honestly, after you just keep watching the same 4 or 5 minute like by letter, it's just not. And they had some really good filmmakers behind it as well, which is
Yeah.
great. But I gave it an F. What do you think?
Yeah.
I'm on the same page because I
Yeah.
I did see some of the second one and it was not good either. Hostel.
Hostel in Eli Roth movie, his way to do what kickstarted the whole freaking torture porn concept.
Mhm.
I am not a fan of this movie. Did not like the sequel to it either. I'm not a fan of this style of filmmaking or this style of movies. I got to put it down there with D, or wait, hang on, F. I got to put it down there in the F level category.
I won't argue with that. Have you seen the third one?
I did, but I don't remember anything about it.
It's like a Vegas thing.
I think it was my favorite of the franchise. Like I don't remember anything about it, but I think I liked it better than part one and two.
Well, yeah, they did a lot of interesting stuff with it, honestly. Blade, I've never seen any of Blades.
Me either.
We'll just put it down to I don't know right now. We'll skip Shake, Rattle, and Roll unless you've seen them.
I've never heard of it.
Night of the Demons. This is a good one.
Okay. None of the Demons. Really fun. Um, oh my God, I forgot his name.
You think
Kevin Tenney. Sorry, Kevin Tenney, who directed, also directed Witchboard. Did Night of the Demons. Really, really fun. Takes place on Halloween. It's one of the better, Halloween themed horror films. Fun, cool effects. Very, very cheesy. Very low budget. You gotta know what you're getting into because it's kind of outrageous with everything that happens. I really like the idea of demons instead of being zombies. A lot of people always just do the easy zombie thing, and this was demons, so it's different. They have their own unique style to it. Part two is very out there as well. Some of the hilarious, hilarious storytelling and effects in the second one, which makes it fun. It's so over the top that it's fun, so ridiculous. Part three was a direct to video film from the franchise, and even though that it's nowhere near part one and two, it's still fun. You still have the Angela character in that as well. Um, there's some weird computer effects in there that kind of are really dated, but I still had fun with it. Um, the remake, I thought the remake was very, very hit and miss in a lot of aspect of it because I really like Edward Furlong. He's one of my favorite actors, and he's in the film. I thought he did a really good job with it. The effects were not too good for the remake, but the story was there because it's the same story as the first movie, really. Just a Halloween night party. All of a sudden, there's demons in the house. Yada yada yada. Just not very well executed, but still can be fun at times. So I give the whole entire franchise. I'd put it at the C level.
I agree. And the Amityville Horror, I think honestly, would go right there at sea level as well. And reason being is that there are some good ones, not great, and then there are some really bad ones that are unforgivably bad. And there we go.
Well, I really like the first two Amityville films. Um, if you really deal with Amityville, you can go into two different directions because they have like the original franchise, which stays close intact with the original story and everything. And then you can jump into the whole independent filmmaker making any movie they want to can now throw in the title of Amityville movie. It does not even have to have anything to do with it. You can just be like Amityville couch, and you can have about a killer
I
couch or
want to
whatever. It
see
does
it.
not doesn't fucking matter what you make your movie about, but you can still title it the Amityville something because it's not copywritten. You cannot copyright a town, so anybody can make something. There's over 50 Amityville films, and about 48 of them are awful.
But you know, putting it in the sea level, I think, is very fair on both ends because like they're awful films, but there was a 2016 Tyler that was sitting around laughing and making fun of all these films because like they're so like outrageously like bad that they're almost good. Like they're seriously like they're so bad they're good kind of films.
Yeah,
No
and
one really talks
here
about how bad they can get.
and just to let you know, I'm actually going to be in one of them. So
Hey,
I'm gonna be in one of them coming out. I think probably either late 2023 or early 2024. Hopefully it'll be 2023. But it's called Amityville Turkey Day.
I love it.
Yeah. So it is a direct sequel to one that came out either last year or the year before. I can't remember. It was called Amityville Thanksgiving. It's a
Mm.
direct sequel to that one. So I will be. I'll have a small little part in that as my first official acting role, but it's a voiceover acting role. So
Is it being filmed locally or is it filmed somewhere completely out of here?
somewhere else. Yeah, it's not filmed anywhere near me, which is why I'm doing a voiceover for it because I can't travel. So I'm lucky enough to be able to be a part of it. And even though it's one of those Amityville films where it's thrown in there with a lot of horrible horror movies, and I have no idea how the outcome of the actual quality of the film's going to be. I'm just lucky to be able to be a part of something and have a role in a movie. So
Sweet. All right. So Cabin Fever is next, and this
so
is
superior, no.
I was gonna say, oh, um, not a fan of this franchise at all, and I don't even know if I could give it a D.
Uh,
I don't know. Eli Roth has something where his films are all bad, but there's something also about it that's kind of forgivable. I don't know how to even describe how I feel about Eli Roth's films. And how many sequels has there been to that? Three, four,
I think there's four sequels
four
in
sequels.
all. Um, I think it's been remade twice already,
Wow.
but uh, I like the idea and I like the effects, and I think the first movie has a lot of good quality to it. But there's some parts of it that are just so fucking out there and so fucking dumb that
Mm,
it takes away from 90% of the good from the film. And I end up hating the movie because of there's one particular scene that makes me absolutely hate this film. And if you've seen the movie, you know what it is. It's the pancake thing where the young kid bites the guy and just yells pancakes for no fucking reason and then does kung fu. Absolutely annoying and stupid. I absolutely hate this movie because of that scene alone. And then the ending too, where I know you know exactly what I'm talking about with the ending of the film, with the grocery store worker getting the guns and everything. Um, I can't believe it's even made, but
it's great.
um, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta put this at the same level. You put it at a D. I would probably put it down there at the F level with Hostel and stuff. I don't like this franchise. I like the second one actually. The second one was a lot of fun. I think Ty West originally made the second film and had a lot of problems during production with producers and everything. And so like the final version isn't anything that Ty West wanted to have out there, but I think that film is actually a really entertaining film.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is another tough one for me because I avoid this like the plague. Evil Bong. How many have you seen of these, Chris?
I have seen five of these, and I know there's probably about eight or nine of them by now. But the first three they're not good movies by at all. Like they're not. But I see why they were made. They have a certain audience to them, and you know the audience just based off the title alone. But they start getting into the point to where they are made without having any connection whatsoever to horror films. There was one of my watched last year that had no kills in it whatsoever. There was no deaths. There was nothing scary in it. There was nothing. It was a 100% comedy,
Mhm.
and there was nothing related to horror whatsoever at all, like 0%. So I don't know why the franchise would even like. I don't understand the reason for the franchise even existing really. Um, I would. It's got to be F for
Money.
me. Yeah,
I'm
yeah, but if you're basing a franchise like a horror franchise, like I don't know, it doesn't even belong in that category. So it's weird. How do you make money on something that you can't even cater to your own audience?
oh hey, yeah, I love that. All right. So we have a pretty reasonable list here. I know we are running out of time, so if you want to, do you want to go down here, Chris, and just pick like maybe like
We'll pick a
one,
few of them.
like rank a couple, maybe like you like rank like an S or like you can like an A. These like some favorites.
Okay, we'll go with Pet Cemetery.
Okay.
So I think the first Pet Cemetery movie is one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever created. It's one of the most darker films in horror as well. You have the killer cat, you have the kid that gets killed and comes back. Very, very creepy, very scary. Even in terms of the book, I've read the book, I really love the book. Um, I got to put the franchise. I mean, I like the second one too. Again, Edward Furlong. Hated the remake. Absolutely hated the remake. Unnecessary. But based off the first film alone, I'm going to go with a B, category B.
Oh yeah, I would agree with you there. I was hoping you would go like B. I didn't hate the remake, honestly. I'm looking here to see what I would probably rank high because there's a couple here that kind of caught my eye. And I know the thing is we don't really have any like super early classics on here. So part of me wants to talk about my two. Okay, well, I just want to give a shout out. I'm not gonna rank. I'll rank these quickly. But I do want to give a shout out to my two favorite monsters. My favorite monster is probably the Invisible Man, but Frankenstein has a lot as well. And these are my two absolute favorites. I mean, The Bride of Frankenstein is my favorite adaptation. The Hammer run of Frankenstein's fantastic. I think that the original Invisible Man was absolutely beautiful and stunning. So without saying anything else, I think that they both deserve. I think the Invisible Man deserves the A tier, and I also think that Frankenstein deserves the A tier. Those are the two. That's about as high as I'll get with the classic monsters because they are, they are very early prototypes of what we know as horror today. But if you look at those two examples, The Invisible Man was an excellent film, beautiful cinematography for what it was. I mean, it really kind of like had like a lot of like little magic tricks they would call them to where like you would see. And then Frankenstein had so much going for it, and then it spawned onto something that we see and love today. And there's been some really shitty Frankenstein adaptations, I know, but let me tell you, the ones that are good, which are most of them, are really good. And hey, The Invisible Man, it's been remade. And that was actually really good too, but it had nothing to do with The Invisible Man. But it was really, really solid. So A tier for both
Yeah,
of those for me.
can't say I've ever seen any of those actually. So
Oh, I recommend both for sure.
we know that Scream is one of our all time favorite horror films. We both love the Scream franchise, one, two, three, even four to that matter. Even four is still enjoyed by us, especially the new one that came out as well. Scream 5 was good. We look forward to Scream 6. It definitely gets an A ranking, yes.
Yeah, A tier, I think, very fair for
If
that.
if we were ranking only the first one, it would be superior.
Yeah,
Uh, but the fact that everything else exists pushes it down a little bit.
the Scream is a masterpiece, but the other ones they're good. Scream 4 was it was all right. It was good. You know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So, The Shining, is that a franchise?
Well, technically, because you have Doctor Sleep now, there was also the Shining TV series. Well, not the mini series that came out. That was like done. I think it was directed by Mick Garris. I guess considering with that, there are technically three films.
Yeah, I guess. I was just like trying. I was like thinking because I was like, well, there has been like other adaptations, so I guess you could say that's a franchise. Okay, so thinking about something that's really, really good here. There's nothing. I'm kidding. No. Um, this is tough because I have a couple I want to highlight. Let's go ahead and talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because this will be really quick because we've talked about it briefly on the show before. We actually all your entire Fright Fights crew went out to watch this together not too long ago, a couple months ago, and it's absolutely a masterpiece. Chris found a lot of stuff I think that he liked about it, and I absolutely adore the film. I think it's S tier all the way. Some of the later ones weren't quite as good, but I think that the series held such a strong influence from its, key releases that it could it go in the A? Or do you think B? I think it might hit A.
Based off the first movie alone, it would be A. There are some really awful films in the franchise that never needed to be made to begin with, but I would put it based off just the first movie in the A category.
Hmm. Same here. I think that we should do you see any other ones here you wanted to highlight? Because I have a bunch.
Well, there's something on there's that I see that we don't really talk much about, and um, it's Night of the Living Dead. So I think the first George Romero film is one of the greatest zombie films ever created. I even absolutely love part two, and it's actually my favorite of sorry, I always say part two, but Dawn of the Dead.
Mhm.
Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite films ever made as well. Day of the Dead is a lot of fun, and I know that he did, Diary of the Dead and Land of the Dead, and what was the other, Survival of the Dead and stuff, which weren't very good movies. But I think based off the first three films, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead, that trilogy can be listed up in the A categories as well,
Where am I not seeing that?
right above Psycho.
Psycho. There it is. Okay. Where'd you put it at again?
I would put it in the A category, up there with but just based off the first three films.
I think I could agree with that, honestly. I'm cool with it. Something that I think we should close on the final ranking.
Sure.
It is Halloween. And saving the one that's gonna be so tough to rank for last. Because here's the thing, Mike, if you're listening, close your ears. Because Mike, this is like Mike's Nightmare on Elm Street. This is like Mike's Critters. This is like he would put it in the S tier. We know he would. So
Yeah,
part
he
of
would.
me feels hypocritical for not including Mike in on this decision. But honestly, let's just say it. Okay. Halloween is very good. It is
Mhm.
also quite flawed. There are when the good gets good for Halloween, the bad gets really, really bad.
Uh,
Resurrection isn't even a film at this point. It's an absolute
Yeah.
atrocity.
Rob Zombies, Halloween,
Oh,
atrocious.
Jesus Christ.
Um, H2, pretty much atrocious.
That was not good.
And I didn't care for the 2018 version of Halloween either. Didn't
That was
like
pretty good. I
Halloween.
like that one.
I didn't like Halloween Ends. But then I did like Halloween Kills. So um, even though that uh,
But
I
think about
like,
Halloween 2, even Halloween 3. Halloween 3 is
yeah, and that's the thing because listen, like I like the Friday the 13th franchise more than I like the Halloween franchise. Like
no.
Jason is my favorite of the main ones. I love the character of Jason. Um, and I enjoy those movies more. So I've got to put it right there at the same level. It's got to be a B category for me.
I'll be honest with you. That's exactly what I was gonna do. Because okay, let's look at it. So obviously we said B, right? Yeah. Okay. So obviously, like the Nightmare on Elm Street, I know that you said A, but for me, I'm telling you, whenever I see, okay, we have Freddy Krueger, we have Jason Voorhees, um, we have Michael Myers. So let's just look at these three, because obviously these are the three most prominent ones you see around all the time in conversation, even the GP horror. It's absolutely these are the three. I think that the strongest, taking the movie out of the equation, just the character, for me, and I feel like you might agree too. I know that Jason's your favorite. And I think that he has a lot going for him as well. But something about Freddy Krueger is just amazing. I don't know. It's just like he's so funny, he's so terrifying. The effects are great.
Y- Yeah, there's more character
So
art
many.
to Freddy than the other ones because the other ones are just people behind a mask. That's all it is.
Right.
So Robert Englund brings out the character of Freddy. He displays so emotion and the comedy aspect of it as well, but the fear in it, it's all Robert Englund. And that's why the remake failed is because they did not focus on that part. They just threw somebody in there and put on the same type of costume, and it just didn't work. But yeah, the first the original franchise of it is very entertaining and very fun, and almost on every aspect of the films. So, and I can't say that with Halloween. I mean, I really really enjoy all the Halloween movies up till Resurrection. Um, but I still enjoy other movies. Like if you gave me an option, if you were like, here, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or Halloween, which one of these do you want to watch a film from at this moment? I would probably choose a Friday the 13th movie. It's just a very easy, simple watch with a lot of fun. And
Oh, dude, I have a blast watching them. I mean, honestly, somebody give me the choice between Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or Halloween, all above. I mean, it's hard to even decide. But I do consistently like Freddy the most. And so I think to just sum this up, if somebody's not actually seeing what we're seeing, if you're watching on YouTube, you might see this. But let's go ahead and just recap our list. So starting at the F tier, which is the absolute worst, we have The Howling, Human Centipede, Boogeyman, Lake Placid, ABCs of Death, Hostel, and Evil Bong. And that is quite the list. I can see why.
yeah, and then coming in above that category, in the D level category, we have Resident Evil, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Scanners, Wishmaster, Feast, The Blob, The Omen, The Hitcher, Children of the Corn, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Cabin Fever, which all appropriate levels. I think they all hold right above the other films there. So
Yeah, I think that I thought we would have like more disagreements, but I think that really our list, I think we're pretty much in almost agreement with. We feel pretty good about it. Coming in at the C level, we have Silent Night, Deadly Night, The Fly, Open Water, Scary Movie, The Lost Boys, Ginger Snaps, I Spit on Your Grave, Night of the Demons, and the Amityville Horror.
yeah, and you can see like the level of quality as you're going up too, because going from Children of the Corns up to like the Silent Night, Deadly Nights, and Night of the Demons and stuff. It's the quality did jump up a bit, but then we go into category B with Friday the 13th, The Exorcist, Candyman, Cloverfield, Alien, Creepshow, Pet Cemetery, and Halloween.
And those are just all, I mean, honestly, they could be A tier. Like those are really getting into some good ones. The A tier though is The Thing, The Evil Dead, Phantasm, The Invisible Man, Frankenstein, Scream, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Night of the Living Dead. All of those are just fantastic series.
Yeah. And then we go into our superiors, which are basically our favorites no matter what the situation is given. So you could throw out anything and you could say, oh, there's 15 more Nightmare on Elm Street movies coming out. All of them are going to suck. I'm pretty sure your rating is not going to change. Same thing with me for Critters. It's a passion of mine. I absolutely love the franchise, no matter what. If I was the only person in the world that liked it, I would still rank it as high as I do.
Mhm.
Um, it's one of those things that we love them. We always will. There's nothing going to change our mind about them, and they're going to be superior above everything else. So
Awesome. So I had a great time doing this. I think it's really fun. I mean, maybe we could do some more tier lists in the future. So if you guys want to see us cover any particular topics for our tier list, you could always throw that out there for us. We'd love to cover it. And yeah, I had a great time.
yeah, me too. And I want to
Thanks.
do this again, and I'd like to do like a franchise ranking as well. Like pick one of these franchises and go
Yes.
through and talk about each film and do a ranking list just like this.
Or we can even do like the three, like we do like Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare, and just the films from that. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, just rank the films individually from each one of those.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in for this week's episode. We'll be back to the regular scheduled programming hopefully in a couple days or next week. So if you're hearing this, it's right around the corner.
Yep, and if you haven't yet, go to our Facebook page, Fright Fights Podcast, and like and follow. And also follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts at, so you can check in with us all the time on a weekly or bi-weekly updates.
Sweet. All right. See you guys.
Later.